Hi, in this lesson we're looking at equations with grouping symbols. And so far we've looked at lots of different ways of solving equations. Okay, we've looked at how to solve equations using methods like trial and error, backtracking, inverse operations, and we've learnt how to figure out how to solve equations with pronumerals or unknowns, basically in the form of letters, on both sides of the equation. And we're going to be continuing to do that here. We're going to learn today how to solve equations with grouping symbols. Now, the first thing you need to think about is, what are grouping symbols? Okay, what do they look like in maths? What are they? And the second question I want you to think about is, what do we mean by equations with grouping symbols? Okay, what does that even look like? Okay, and I've kind of showed you a little clue on the video here, so it can help you to write down your answer. What you need to do at this point of the video is pause it and write down in your own words the answer to questions 1 and 2. Okay, welcome back. So you should have written down in your own words your answer to questions 1 and 2. I'm going to quickly explain to you what they are so that if you didn't have the correct answer you can write it down. Okay. So grouping symbols are basically parentheses or brackets. Okay. So what are grouping symbols? Well, they literally look like this in maths, okay, and they have something inside them. So you need to make sure you write that down, and also write down that they're brackets or parentheses, okay. What do we mean by equations with grouping symbols? Well, obviously in the equation they're going to have those parentheses, and the grouping symbols stand for something, okay. So back up here in question 1, you should have written down that the grouping symbols, they actually represent and mean, when we're working with equations, they mean to multiply, or they basically show a product, okay, and a product means to multiply. So make sure you've got that written down in your answer. Let's have a look at some example questions together. So the instruction in question 3 says to solve the following equation. Okay, so we're just going to go through a few examples together here. So in the first one, in question A, and again I've sourced these questions from Spectrum Maths 9 5.2 because that's what we're learning, and hopefully it will just expose you to some different questions other than in your textbook that are similar, and we can go through and work through these. So in question 3, we're going to be using what's called the distributive law, okay? And if you don't know what the distributive law is, we learnt that last year, so it's worth writing down what the distributive law is. And all the distributive law says is that if you've got something outside parentheses or grouping symbols, you can actually distribute that through using multiplication. So that would equal AB plus AC. Now, just me throwing a bunch of letters at you is not going to help. So let's have a look at this first example. We're still trying to solve an equation, so we're still trying to get x by itself. But we're going to use this distributive law to help us, because we need to get rid of the brackets first. So the first step when solving equations with grouping symbols is always to get rid of your grouping symbols. Okay, so it's probably worth writing down too. The first step is that we need to get rid of our grouping symbols. And that's really important. So let's try and expand this out. We're going to multiply through here, so 2 times x is 2x, 2 times minus 6 is minus 12, and that's all equal to 8. So that's the expansion of this. So when we expand, so another key word to think about is the word expand. Expand means to make bigger. It basically means to do this, to multiply through. Okay, so that's probably worth writing down as well. So to solve these, we have to first expand our grouping symbols, in other words, get rid of them, and then solve like we normally would. So here I'd need to plus 12 to both sides. So I'd have 2x is equal to 20, and then I need to divide 2 by both sides, because 2 divided by 2 is 1, leaving me with x. My answer would be 10. Again, I can put that in here and check it. If I do 10 minus 6, I get 4. And 4 times 2 is 8. So that I know my answer is correct there. Okay. Have a look at question C. This time I've got two sets of grouping symbols on both sides, but we're going to use the same process. Okay, so multiply through both sides at a time. 2 times 3 is 6x minus 2. 2 times minus 1 is 2. 5 times 2x is 10x. 5 times minus 6 is minus 30. I now need to get both the pronumerals onto one side. So we're using what we did last lesson, looking at equations with pronumerals on both sides. So I need to get all the letters onto one side. So I'm going to minus 6x from both sides to do that. That's not the only way you could have done it. That's the way I'm choosing to do it. So 10x minus 6x is 4x. I've still got this minus 30 here. I'm going to plus 30 to both sides. And I'm just going to move to up here, my answer. So I'm going to have, sorry, I don't need an equal sign there. I'm going to have, so minus 2 plus 30, that is going to be positive 28. And minus 30 plus 30 is 0, and that's 4x. Get x by itself, I need to divide both sides by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1, so x is equal to 7. Okay. Doesn't matter which side I have the x on. If you want, you can rewrite it the other way as x equals 7. Okay. As long as you know x equals 7, we're fine. Okay. So that's how we solve equations using by expanding grouping symbols. Okay. We're going to have a look at a few more examples, and make sure you've got this written down. Pause the video if you have to. Let's go back and have a look at some of these harder questions. Okay, we won't do them all, but I do want to do question H with you. We'll do these two questions and then we'll finish up. Okay, question H. Okay, sometimes you get questions like these and they've got this thing out the front and it kind of can be confusing. The key is just to leave that there. Okay, so we're going to have 2t minus, and I'm going to expand this out. So minus 3 times 1 is minus 3, and minus 3 times minus t is plus 3t, and that equals 22. Solving this, collect your like terms. So 2t plus 3t, that's 5t. And I've still got the minus 3 there. I need to get rid of the minus 3, so I'm going to do the opposite thing, plus 3. 5t is 25. To get t by itself, I need to divide both sides by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1, and t equals to 5. Okay, that's my final answer. Question F is going to take a lot of expanding, so I'm going to need to expand all of these out first. So 2q plus 8 plus 6q plus 3 equals 43. That should be your first line of working when you do 2 times q, 2 times 4, 3 times 2q, 3 times 1. Collect your like terms, 2q and 6q, well that's 8q, so I've got 8q plus 8 and 3 is 11 equals 43. I need to minus 11 to both sides. Okay, going up here with my answer. 11 minus 11 is 0, so I've got 8q there. 43 take away 11, well what's that? Well 43 take away 10 is 33. So 32. Divide both sides by 8 to get q by itself. So q is going to equal to positive 4. Okay. So that's kind of how you work with expanding grouping symbols and solving equations with the grouping symbols. So you need to make sure you've got all that written down, write down any questions you have. Okay, pause the video to make sure you get it all down, make sure you understand it. Okay, before you finish up, I'm going to let you try this one by yourself and we'll go through it in class. Before you finish up though, make sure you write a summary of what you learnt this lesson, so what you heard about, saw, what you understood. And question 5, make sure that you write down anything you don't understand or write questions that you yourself have, but you also need to have at least one higher order thinking question. So remember, a question that gets you to think outside the box. Make sure you print off your work, stick it in your book or folder and bring it to class next lesson. See ya!